Gavin. Gavin, accept to come up on stage. This is mainly so we don't get interrupted.
Come on up, Gavin.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit.
There used to be a way to force people to come up on stage.
I'm on stage.
Okay, Gavin's reading, and he's got...
Yep, they work.
Okay, you just have to accept to come up on stage. Just accept to come up on stage. Come on, Gavin, this isn't hard.
Well, let me just say you're correct.
Kinky.
Oh, right. Of course.
Gavin,
Gavin, you come on up,
click
man.
the green button.
I have invited you to the stage, Gavin. Just hit the button that says go to the stage.
We've all three invited him.
Eon, if you need
Blackout, is there a way to pull him on the stage? I am Groot. Jack, that was naughty. Don't do that. Gavin, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. Just hit the green button. Yay, he made it.
What took you so long?
There we go.
Alrighty.
This is going to be very
I just need to put my evidence in the chat. Corsi, I expect you to do the same.
Gavin, you put your evidence on when you're doing your opening statement.
Hey, Corsi, you shut your mouth. You shut your mouth. There's one moderator here, and it's not you. I said I'm just putting my evidence in the chat now.
All right, it's gonna be a good debate, huh?
Well,
sounds like you guys are ready.
We'll see how long it lasts, Eon.
Well, I would like to welcome everyone to a Learn About God debate. This is Gavin versus Corsi, and Core C is the affirmative, that there are some biblical contradictions, and Gavin says, no, Core C, you're just flat out wrong. And so we're going to start with the affirmative. So Core C, you get, we're going to have 15-minute openings each, and then, what Core C and Gavin, is it like an hour open discussion?
Yeah, it's basically 15-minute opening, 15-minute counter rebuttal, or like cross-examination, and then 1 hour openings, 1 hour
right. Okay.
back and forth.
All right, sounds good.
My opening statement is going to be in video format, so I can post links as the video plays. Gavin has already been informed of this, and it's ready to go. We ready?
Okay, we are ready. You can start when you want.
The Bible contains many, many contradictions throughout. Some of them are easily reconcilable, while others are completely irreconcilable. Today I will not make it easy for my opponent, and I will only bring to the ones he can't refute, and I will even give the typical flawed ways I've heard people try to refute them. Starting off with the birth narrative of Jesus of Nazareth. This story can be found in the books of Matthew chapter 2 and Luke chapter 2, but it's absent in Mark and John. In Matthew verse 12, Jesus is kept a secret due to King Herod seeking to kill Jesus, verse 16. In Luke 17 to 18, the shepherds shouted out about it everywhere they could in the area before coming back to worship again, and Jesus was brought to the same town Herod was supposedly staying in, verse 25. More on that in a moment. In Matthew, Jesus is born, the Magi come to see him, and he is immediately brought to Egypt, verse 13, to escape Herod, and is only brought back at the age of 12 when Herod dies. He then goes to Nazareth instead of Jerusalem because of Herod's son, verses 19 to 23. In Luke, Jesus is brought to Jerusalem as an infant, verse 22, where he is announced as the Christ, verses 28 to 32. Then brought to Nazareth right away, where he grows up, verses 39 to 40. Keeping in mind that the announcement was made that he is God's salvation, and declared him God's prophet in the same town Herod supposedly had no idea about his existence, according to Matthew, only finding out when the Magi came to his door in Matthew 1 to 3. In Matthew, Jesus is born during the reign of Herod the Great, while in Luke verse 2, he is born during the reign of Quirinius as governor. According to the Roman records at the time, Quirinius was governor of Syria during the census in 6 CE, but Herod I died 8 years earlier in the month of April in 4 BCE. These two rulers were not present during the same census. These records have been verified countless times and are not in dispute. Moreover, in Matthew verse 3 says, Herod and all of Jerusalem were upset about the coming of Jesus, but in Luke 34 to 38, they are very pleased that he has come, and they're very happy. Some will try to reconcile this, saying it was Herod's son, also named Herod, but Herod II didn't die until 33 CE, again according to Roman records, so it couldn't have been him that died when Jesus was 12. These two stories are then mashed together to create the typical Christmas story of 3 wise men and a baby that find Jesus in a manger and give him gifts while the angels look on. Now, what theists will try to say is these are the same event at 2 different points in time. However, that makes no sense whatsoever, since Jesus, when he was age 2, couldn't be in both Egypt, according to Matthew, and Nazareth, according to Luke. Or if you even want to take it to before they escaped to Egypt, Jerusalem and Nazareth, according to Luke, and Bethlehem according to Matthew. Not to mention Joseph and Mary would be disobeying God to bring Jesus to Jerusalem, where Herod was looking to kill him. Plus, how was Jesus born during the reign of 2 different leaders that never led at the same time for the same census? In conclusion to this point, any attempt to put Jesus in any place at all between a week after his birth to the age of 12 results in a biblical contradiction on his location, unless you want to appeal to Schrodinger's God, not to mention the other issues I already mentioned. The next contradiction I want to bring up, we did the birth, so let's do the resurrection. In Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 to 10, 2 women came for Jesus in the tomb. The stone block was in place. An earthquake moved it while they watched. An angel then sat down on it and addressed them, and they ran away scared without going inside. Jesus appeared to them outside as they were running away. In Mark chapter 16, verses 1 to 8, 3 women went into the tomb. The stone block was already moved, and they went inside and found a man in white, presumably an angel. They ran away scared, telling no one out of fear. In Luke chapter 24, verses 1 to 6, 5 women came. The stone was already moved. They went inside. 2 angels apparated next to them, and they walked back unafraid to tell the disciples. In John chapter 20, verses 1 through 18, only Mary went up at night, found the stone moved, left, got the disciples, went back up to the tomb, and when the disciples left, Mary looked inside to see 2 angels sitting at either end of the stone Jesus was laid on. She turned around and saw Jesus, but did not recognize him right away until he called her by name. Different women, different angels, different stone positions, different seating positions of the angels. The women were and weren't scared. Jesus told Mary about Galilee, and the angels told her Jesus would be at Galilee. And the 2 times Jesus did appear, they recognized him in one book and didn't in another. For the most important part of the New Testament, Jesus rising from the dead, the 4 Gospels have completely different narratives of the events. Again, Christians will try and reconcile this by saying they have different perspectives of the same event. But I want to remind you, these are all supposed to be inspired by God, so a perfect explanation. So my opponent will have to explain how the 1, 2, 3, or 5 women can walk up onto 2 angels sitting, 2 angels appearing out of thin air, 1 angel sitting, and 1 angel descending from heaven all at the same time after seeing the tomb already opened and opening in front of them, only to have Jesus not appear behind them just outside the tomb, and also appear on the walk back, then both recognizing him right away and thinking he's the fucking gardener. Oh, and saying the other women just weren't mentioned, or, oh, this is just different perspectives of the same event, is really just a way to saying they are a contradiction without saying they are a contradiction, because none of the writers were eyewitnesses. They were supposedly inspired by God himself to write the Gospels. Earlier this week, Nephilim Free tried to reconcile this after a discussion of Jesus' siblings. Neph argued that the siblings could not have been born yet since they were not mentioned. But when this part of the books were brought up about the women and angels, he instinctively and instantly went to special pleading and backpedaled faster than Sonic the fucking Hedgehog getting chased by Shadow. Third is a shorter one. What happened to Judas Iscariot after Jesus was condemned? This depends on the book you read. There are 5 total contradictions here, and one of them has been solved, but the other 4 have not. But we are going to leave this as a test for Gavin here, and I'll reveal the actual solution to the 1 out of 4, well, the 1 out of 5, in the Q&A, but Gavin will still need to solve the other 4 on his own. If you read the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, verses 3 to 10, Judas gave the money back to the church by throwing it inside, left, and hung himself. The priests took the money and bought the field as a burial place for foreigners, and that is why it is called the Field of Blood. But if you read the book of Acts, chapter 1, verses 18 to 20, Judas took the money, bought a plot of land, he fell headlong, meaning he was walking and tripped, his belly burst open, and his intestines spilled out. Jerusalem, the people of Jerusalem, called it the Field of Blood because of this, and Peter stated the place was to remain deserted with no one to dwell on it. In these short verses, Judas died differently, hanging and falling. The buyer of the field was different, Judas himself or the priests themselves. The field name was given for 2 different reasons: outsider's graveyard or Judas's blood spilled. 2 different groups named it that: the priests alone or the populace as a whole. And the use of the land is different, since one is to be used and the other is never to be used. The typical response to this is to ignore most of the inconsistencies and focus solely on the manner of death by saying Judas fell out of the tree and that his guts burst open. But then, how was he walking to fall headlong? And please address the rest of the issues while you're at it. I can go on with more if we have time. In Genesis chapter 1, man was created on day 6, but in chapter 2, the events of Eden happen after day 7 in the same chapter, where God then creates man after the 7 days of creation and woman the day after that. Typically, you will hear chapter 2 is just a focus on day 6, but then again, why was day 7 written about at the start of the chapter with everything else speaking about being followed by that? In the books of Acts chapter 9 verse 7 says the men journeying with Paul heard a voice, but in Acts 22 verse 9 the men heard nothing. Some will say the reason for this is that Paul was lying. I'm actually content with the Apostle Paul being a lying sack of shit for the sake of debate, because that would make him unworthy of God's grace. In John chapter 3 verse 13, no one has gone to heaven except for Jesus. But in the 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 11, Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. And that is the Old Testament. So much for the infallible word of God. And the best I could even think of is that Elijah was just taken up into the sky only to presumably die with the body not being found. But given the rest of the chapter, that seems unlikely. And because Gavin has said this was going to be too easy, I'm going to add one more at the end here that I haven't told him about. Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 9 says, "You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I am the Lord your God and am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me." In chapter 24 verse 16, "Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin." So the contradiction is punishment for the child for the sins of the parents. In chapter 5 it says they will be punished, and in chapter 4 it says they will not. There are tons of contradictions in the Bible, but we can leave things here. Now, my opponent wants to tell you there are no contradictions at all in the Bible. So for him to even think of this debate as a victory for him, he will have to refute and explain every single one of these and all the others in the Bible using logic alone to reconcile them. And that means not just saying, "It's not a contradiction," but instead actually giving narrative on how all the conflicting stories coincide to be one singular story. For reference, I will post almost 450 major and minor contradictions in the side chat, but we can focus on the main 3 I have presented, and if there's time we can go over the others too. This is for the audience. Keep in mind, before this debate, I handed notes to Gavin in the form of, at first, just the chapters we would be going over in no particular order. I was asked for more detail, and I gave Gavin the exact chapters and the exact contradictions I wanted to present. These should have been obvious to Gavin, as the 3 times he challenged me over this. The first time I asked him what the birth narrative of Jesus was and he couldn't do it. I finally gave up and talked about it in front of him. Then he challenged me again to just the birth narrative, and I had to correct him and tell him that it would be with contradictions in general. And I asked him for the story of Judas's fate. He couldn't do it again until I again gave up and talked it over with somebody else again while Gavin was present. He challenged me a 3rd time, and I asked him about the resurrection story, which again he couldn't do. This is the reason these are the focus of this debate. Good luck, Gavin. I concede the rest of my time.
That was a flawless presentation.
Let's go! All right. That was wonderful. So Gavin, are you ready to start your opening?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, Gavin.
Yes, I will turn you
Hey,
up.
I was talking to the moderator, not you. You're not moderating this room. Are we clear about that?
Well, you didn't specify, so I just said yes. Sorry.
Are we clear that you're
Okay,
not
boys.
moderating the room?
Gavin, are you ready to start your opening? 15 minutes.
Yeah, I just want a bit of clarification on the cussing. Are we allowed to cuss and say words like fuck and all that sort of thing?
This is an open debate. You can do whatever you want in your opening, or in this debate. You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Yes.
But I'll take the high road, and I won't cuss.
All right, just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks, Corsi, for that. And a relevant interpretation of what the Bible says. You sent me six contradictions in the Bible, and I'll cover those. But the first thing we need to understand is what the Bible is and what it is not. And this is something atheists miss by a mile. The Bible is an anthology of sacred texts central to Christianity and influential in other Abrahamic religions. It consists of at least 66 books, depending on which denomination you're with, divided into Old and New Testaments, written over about 1500 years in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. The text includes laws, poetry, prophecies, history, and teaching focused on God's relationship with humanity, and is planned for a renewed relationship through Jesus Christ. This might be news for some atheists.
No.
Christians hold to its divine inspiration, self-authentication, and foundation of understanding God's will and love. Now, globally, atheists, this will rock your world. The Bible has profoundly shaped culture, law, art, education, and a pile of social services, including hospitals, etc. Now, this is what the Bible is not. So prepare yourself, hold on to your seats. The Bible is not a science book. It was not written to explain scientific phenomena, but to convey spiritual truths. The Bible is not an evidence brief for a court trial. This kind of evidence will include oral history, documentary evidence, physical evidence, affidavits, identification evidence, and evidence that actually must comply with the Evidence Act of 2006 according to American law. So it's not a legal brief. It's also not a rule book. Though it does contain laws, its primary purpose is to reveal God's relationship with humanity, not just prescribed rules. Now, what it also is not is a cover-to-cover literal book, atheists. While many of the pericope are historically factual, others use metaphorical, parabolic, and poetic language, which anyone with a brain cell doesn't take literally. The other thing it's not is it's not a collection of timeless sayings. Many passages are culturally specific and require context. You'll hear that word context a lot for correct application. And last of all, atheists, the Bible's not a magic book. It does not function as a mystical tool for divination or magic spells. The Bible requires careful study and interpretation to understand.
Keep going.
Properly. So, let's have a look at some of these objections that my learned opponent has brought up. Let's do the first one, shall we? The differences in the...
Why are you so lame?
In the... In the resurrection narratives.
Yes! Oh, bravo!
Oh no. Yeah, we'll do that one. Yep.
This guy's a total disgrace.
Just hang in there with me, folks.
Wait, what?
What did you say?
Oh, here it is. Okay.
Yeah, bitch.
So, of course, his first objection, or first watertight, robust contradiction is the contradictions between Mark chapter 16, Matthew chapter 28, Luke chapter 24, and John chapter 20 about the resurrection. All right. So, first off the rank, it's good to understand a few basics of biblical interpretation that aid our understanding of why some things differ in these Gospels, particularly around the resurrection. It's important to remember that a partial report is not a false report, because each Gospel author doesn't report every detail of another's narrative does not mean it's inaccurate. All historians edit their accounts for various purposes, and the Gospel authors are no different. A divergent account is not a false account. For example, Matthew speaks of one angel at Christ's tomb, whereas John mentions two angels. Oh, wow! Must be a contradiction. I'm an atheist and I've just proved Christianity to be false.
Okay.
No, you haven't. Simple mathematics says that if you have two angels, you're also going to have one, aren't you? Matthew didn't say there was only one angel. If he had said that, then we would have a true contradiction with with John's narrative. But we don't. Gnash of teeth. Instead, Matthew records the words of the one who spoke. Though divergent accounts can seem to cast doubt on the accuracy of the reporters, we, as intelligent people, must reserve final judgment until all the facts are in. So, what we have is 17 points of the resurrection in the Gospels that lay out the reconciliation and timeline of the Gospel account records of Christ rising and his appearances over the following 40 days.
You are so
to many individuals,
cute when
small
you are
groups, and
serious.
one very large group of people. So, let's get started. Matthew 28, verses 2 through to 4, an angel rolls away the stone from the tomb entrance before sunrise. The guards are seized with fear and eventually flee. Matthew 28, 1, Mark 16, 1 to 4, Luke 24, 1 to 3, and John 20, verse 1 record women disciples visiting the tomb and discover that Christ is missing. There's no dead body.
Suffering some form of brain damage.
Amazing. Next one. John 20, verses 1 to 2. Mary Magdalene leaves to tell Peter and John that the tomb's empty and there's no teacher in the tomb. Matthew 28, 5 to 7, Mark 16, 5 to 7, Luke 24, 4 to 8. Other women remain at the tomb and they see two angels who tell them of Christ's resurrection. And Luke 24, 12, John 23 to 10, Peter and John run to the tomb and then they leave. Mark 16, 9 to 11, John chapter 20, 11 to 18. Christ's first appearance. This is Christ's first appearance in the Gospels. It's when Mary Magdalene returns to the tomb. In Matthew 28, 8 to 10, verses 8 to 10, Christ's second appearance happens. Jesus appears to the other woman, Mary, mother of James, Salome, and another lady called Joanna. In Matthew 28, 11 to 15, at this time, the guards report the event to the religious leaders, and they are bribed to tell a lie. And point number 9, 1 Corinthians 15:5, Christ's third appearance occurs as Jesus privately appears to Peter.
Shut the fuck up!
All right, Mark 16, 12 to 13. Luke 24, 13, 32, Christ's fourth appearance occurs to Cleopas and his companion. Luke 24, 36 to 43, Jesus appears to the 10 disciples with Thomas missing in the upper room. That's actually Christ's fifth appearance. John 20, 26 to 28, Christ's sixth appearance happens.
Why don't you shut your trap, you judgmental
cotton-candy disciples. Jesus appears to all 11 disciples, which of course include Thomas, but absent Judas. John 21, 1 to 4 is Christ's seventh appearance in the Gospels. He appears to 7 disciples by the Sea of Galilee and performs the miracle of the fish in the net.
Shut the fuck up!
Mark that down, Forsey, if you don't know what that is. Point 14, Matthew 28, 16 to 20, Mark 16, 15 to 18. This is the 8th appearance of Jesus. It's also in 1 Corinthians 15 to 6. Jesus appears to over 500 individual people on a mountain in Galilee at one time.
Shut up! Shut up!
All right, next one, 1 Corinthians 5:7. Christ is Christ's ninth appearance. He appears to his half-brother James. Number 16, Christ is Christ's 10th appearance in Jerusalem. Jesus appears to the disciples again. And the last one, folks, the last one is point number 17. Is Christ's 11th appearance. Jesus appears.
I'm sorry. We don't give a fuck.
Ascends into heaven while the disciples look on. The different perspectives in the gospel accounts of Christ's resurrection are indicative of the veracity.
What?
Veracity.
What?
Now, for those who struggle with bigger words than Marmite, veracity means habitual truthfulness, precise and accurate, credibility, honesty, integrity, and authenticity.
What?
So this is talking, these different perspectives are talking about the veracity of the first-hand eyewitnesses.
What?
First-hand eyewitnesses, people that were there.
You get a tweet now.
Those who have seen something unexpected, like, you know, in today's state of affairs, if we see something unexpected, we often report the details in somewhat of a phonetic and seemingly disconnected way, as we attempt to communicate the depth of what we have just witnessed, even while we're still processing the event itself. I'll give you a classic example. In Hamilton last year, I was in the main street and a ran outside and another guy right in front of me.
Moving right along.
Jesus fucking Christ!
So that was something unexpected, isn't it?
Looks like you could use some help.
Right, where are we up to?
Oh, I'm the only one that matters.
Were the gospel authors or the disciples lying? They would have likely presented a uniform narrative.
Wait, what?
And atheists who try to point out contradictions all the time in the Gospels would immediately cry out, "Oh, collusion, collusion, they must have swapped notes with each other."
Wait, what?
If they found exact verbal parallelism and a singular account of the resurrection. And I wonder if the atheists have ever wondered, did Matthew, Mark, Luke and John actually know each other? Did they even know each other personally?
That's kind of hot!
In the end, the recordings of the resurrection found in the four Gospels harmonise well upon closer inspection. And most importantly, strongly agree on the one key fact that has universal life impact, atheists. Ready for this? Christ punched a hole in death and he walked right through it.
Oh, harder,
Doesn't that
Daddy.
just get your undies in a twist? Okay, so let's move on to the next contradiction that Horsey is gagging about. And this is the birth narratives. Birth narratives, where are they? I bet you there's a lot of atheists who have muted me. That's alright.
I'm getting real tired of this shit.
Looks like you could use some help.
Yeah, I think this is the birth narrative. Alright. This is the apparent contradictions, according to Horsey, of the two birth narratives in Matthew and Luke.
Bet you're wrong.
These two Gospels each have a different focus and therefore include different details of the story. Matthew was a Jew and he wrote primarily to a Jewish audience. However, Luke was a Gentile physician, writing to a Gentile audience. Because of the differences, some atheists claim that the narratives of the birth of Jesus contradict each other, but the details of the two accounts are easily reconciled. The phrase birth narrative of Jesus refers to the accounts in the two Gospels that describe the events surrounding Jesus' birth and some of his early childhood too, including his conception, not its, his conception, birth and early life, emphasizing theological themes rather than strict historical chronology. Rather than strict historical chronology. Remember what the Bible is. The following events are included in Matthew's Gospel but are not mentioned in Luke's account.
All right, that
so
was
one,
15 minutes. Corsi, do you mind if he takes your extra 3 minutes, or?
Oh, he can take my 3 minutes all he wants. That's fine. He's still got Judas and the rest of the birth to go, so he can finish.
Okay, go ahead, Gavin.
So I've got 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes, yes.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I'll have to pick up the rest later on. So Matthew describes the visit of the Magi from the east, who follow a star to find and worship the newborn Jesus, bringing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Matthew also writes about Jesus is warned in a dream to flee to Egypt with Mary and Jesus to escape Herod's violence against any under 2-year-old males. Number 3, the massacre of the innocents. Matthew recounts King Herod's decree to kill all male children under 2 years of age.
Keep going.
So Joseph and Mary flee to Bethlehem, attempting to eliminate the threat of his decree. Matthew talks about the return to Egypt, but Luke does not. Joseph and Mary come back when Herod's dead. While Luke mentions no celestial signs, Matthew's Gospel includes the star to guide the Magi, whose events emphasize prophecy fulfillment and Herod's threat, themes unique to Matthew's narrative. Now here's what's in Luke's account, but not in Matthew's. In Luke's account there's the census, Quirinian census, and journey to Bethlehem, where Jesus is born in a manger in Bethlehem. Matthew depicts Joseph and Mary already living in Bethlehem at the time of Jesus' birth. And also Matthew mentions nothing of a selfless or travel. But I might wind it up there because there's quite a bit to go. But one thing to remember is if one gospel writer does not mention an event that another gospel writer talks about, that's not an automatic denial that that event happened, or didn't happen, sorry, that event is false. Because as every good scholar knows, silence does not equal denial. Silence in a text does not equal denial. It would be different if
Shut up!
Luke denied what Matthew was claiming. Then there'd be a contradiction, but we don't see that. So I'm going to yield there. Thanks.
All right, so now we go into 15-minute rebuttals. So, Corsi, if you would like to go.
It's supposed to be 15-minute cross-examinations, Eon.
Yeah,
Oh, cross.
it's cross-examination it's cross-examination / rebuttal. That was the deal I made with Gavin.
Okay,
So
yeah,
it's a little bit of both.
All right, and Corsi, go ahead. You can ask your questions. And time starts
Okay,
now.
so this is a little bit of both, and what in Gavin's opening statement, he admitted to errors. He started off with a bunch of irrelevant stuff, but he talked about things differing from one Bible to the other, one gospel to the other, and that there are errors. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exact same the exact same points that he brought up, and I'm going to address them when it comes to the resurrection narrative. Words. I'm going to share my screen to show the 7 points. Okay, so again, like I said, I really didn't care about anything past point 7 because that was not part of my presentation. I just said the resurrection narrative, and that would have been it. So what I have is on point 1, there's already an issue here. 3 of the Gospels say the stone was already moved, while Matthew said it was moved while the 2 Marys watched. So there's a problem with that interpretation of the narrative. Part 2 is still wrong and still has a contradiction. It ignores everything written in Matthew, saying that 2 of the women watched the stone be moved away. I mean, this attempted narrative ignores completely what's written in Matthew to say that the women disciples visit the tomb and discover Christ missing, because they all did it at the same time. And it just ignores that the stone was moved in front of them, and in this one it's saying that the stone was already moved. So still a contradiction. Part 3 about Mary Magdalene leaving to tell Peter and John. No, that's not what's written. Part 3 is completely wrong for many reasons. In the other 3 Gospels, all the women leave the tomb together. This attempt to change what's written is yet another example of special pleading on the part of the Christian, because Matthew specifically states more than one woman went back in verse 9 by using plural pronouns, and it's only 2 women. So they had to go back together for Jesus to use plural pronouns. Part 4 is wrong, and it's still a contradiction. They didn't remain at the tomb. This is proven by what's written in Mark verse 4 and 5, showing that they entered the tomb together, including Mary, and it even says in verse 8 that they left the tomb together and fled together, telling no one, out of fear. It's also proven to be a poor interpretation by what's written in Matthew, which only refers to 2 women and keeps using the plural pronouns they and them, and always referring to the group. To say they split up when at no point in any of the Gospels does it mention them splitting up at all is just blatantly lying to try to rescue the narrative. For part 5, this is a poorly placed as well. Peter and John didn't run up after the angels appeared. They ran up before. This suggests that the angels repeated to Mary several times that Jesus would be at Galilee. Also in John, Mary just tells them someone took Jesus. Mary goes back up and they find nothing. Then the angels appeared. It makes no sense to have the other women stay back, have these experiences, and let the disciples just hang around and mutter about and look confused while telling them nothing. Does Gavin expect us to think that the women and the disciples were absolute morons and the angels were playing a game of hide the truth until the disciples left? Please. On to part 6. This is absolutely wrong and is a horrid attempt. In Mark, there's more than one woman, and they are all leaving still. But in John, it's only Mary, and it must only be Mary, as Jesus uses singular pronouns here, and in John, he uses group pronouns for Christ's second appearance. And lastly, there is no second appearance. Again, all the women were sticking together and always leaving as a group. They are not splitting up, and in fact, the 2 Gospels that talk about Jesus appearing, Mary was stated to be present in both Gospels. Compelling Truth is doing a terrible job at trying to reconcile this and doesn't address half the issues even I presented. This is all just special pleading and desperation in trying to get the narratives to all fit when it is demonstrable that they do not. Now, why do I have all this information? Well, simple. Gavin gave it to me. He gave me all this information. Now, when I looked at all of his sources, I found a very similarity between them. They all agreed that the stories are different. They all agreed that the writers got everything from second-hand and at times third and fourth-hand sources. So the story is very muddled. And I think Gut Questions said it best when they wrote, "The writers of the Gospels did not attempt to write an exhaustive narrative." In other words, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John had no intention of telling us every detail about the resurrection or every event in the order it happened. So they already admit that the stories do at times conflict with each other, which means they do contradict each other. Gavin, you handed me several websites that absolutely admit to conflicting and thus contradicting stories of the resurrection. I'm going to post a few points made by Gavin's sources in the side chat while Gavin tries again to tell us how these stories actually can fit together to make one narrative. Gavin, go ahead.
Sorry, what do you want me to do?
Give the resurrection story and make it make sense. Now knowing my rebuttals to all.
You do understand what the word cross-examination means, right?
Yes, I'm cross-examining all of the stuff that you brought up.
When is your cross-examination going to start? When's your cross-examination?
Gavin, we only have a limited amount of time in cross-examination. I am directly asking you to address what I brought up to your 7 points. Please do.
When is your first cross-examination going to start?
I am asking you to reconcile the resurrection story, now knowing what I have just brought up as rebuttal to your interpretation.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm going to step in real quick. Yeah, Gavin, right now it's his 15 minutes. You'll get your 15 minutes to cross-examine.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. I know that.
Yeah.
Of course, see, I have explained the resurrection differences in my opening statement. If you weren't paying attention, that's a you problem, not my problem.
Okay, so you don't want to answer the question. You don't have anything else. Now knowing that I've got rebuttals against your entire point.
I've already answered the question. I've already answered the question.
Okay, I'll take your concession on this one.
Well, do you want me to read it again then and bore the audience?
I've got a little bit more to bring up about this topic. This is, I mean, Gavin stumbled over the birth narrative, scrambling to find a link.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Anyway, it's my turn. You don't interrupt me.
Hurry up, because I want to show you what a real cross-examination is. Okay.
So, Gavin stumbled over the birth narrative. He scrambled to find a link since he researched the genealogy and never researched Judas. I mean, I suppose he's doing the best he can after a month of research. Gospels, he talked about Gospels missing information. I'm not talking about missing information here, Gavin. I would have talked about Matthew, and I mean, if I wanted to talk about missing information, I would have talked about Matthew living in the book of Matthew, Jesus being born in a house, and Luke being born in a barn. I don't care about little details like that. I care about the major stuff. You didn't even address any of the points that I brought up yet, but that's fine. We'll deal with it later. So, let's see. Since you gave up on the resurrection, next up on the list is the fate of Judas. From my opening statement, I demonstrated how the two versions of the story are conflicting. So at this time, I'd like to have Gavin explain how both the priests and Judas were physically able to buy the same plot of land at the same time, how the land is to remain barren and be a graveyard, how it was named the Field of Blood because Judas's blood was spilled, and it got its name because the priest called it that because of a graveyard, and how the citizens named it and the priests alone named it, how Judas was able to hang himself and die by falling headlong and his belly burst open. Please reconcile this for the audience, Gavin.
Yeah, that's easy. Okay, well, I would have come to this in my opening statement, but we'll get there eventually. So, you're wanting to talk about the fate of Jesus and why it's a contradiction in the accounts given by Matthew and Luke?
You do realize that Judas, the fate of Judas, Judas Iscariot.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the fate of Judas. But what are the contradictions you're talking about?
Wait, what?
What are the contradictions? Okay, I'll post it into the side chat.
No, just tell me, moron.
I thought you were paying attention.
You're
just
stupid,
tell me,
huh?
moron.
I can work with stupid, daddy likey dummy.
Well, you can waste your time as long as you like, but you won't be wasting it in my cross-examination.
There, in the side chat, in Acts chapter 1, verses 18 to 20, the land was purchased by Judas personally with the money. He died by falling headlong. The name of the plot of land was given by the citizens. It was named the field of blood because his blood was spilled and the land was never to be used. In Matthew chapter 27, verses 3 to 10, it was. I'm speaking, Gavin. You asked me, I'm answering.
I've got your answer.
Okay, go ahead.
You want a response?
What's your answer?
I'll give you an answer.
Go ahead.
So be quiet. So, the apparent contradiction of the fate of Judas Iscariot, according to online atheists. In Matthew 27 and Acts 1, there are complementary accounts of the fate of Judas, but no contradiction. No contradiction.
Just answer it, Gavin!
Different aspects of the same event. Different aspects of the same event, Percy. My God. Notably, the Gospels of Mark, Luke, and John have almost nothing to say about the demise of Judas. So what do we find in Matthew's account? Well, number one, Judas hanged himself after feeling overwhelming remorse. Number two, Judas, threw the silver coins into the temple at the chief priests. What do we find in Acts account? Number one, we need to be conscious of the context of the Acts account. Because the Acts account is describing the aftermath of Judas's suicide. What happened afterwards? Number two...
No, that's not what happened afterwards.
Can you be quiet?
It's literally talking about it in detail as they go, Gavin. No.
Can you be quiet? Oh, carry on. Keep wasting your time. Keep wasting your...
You're wasting my time.
Keep going.
Okay, let's try it this way. How did the priests themselves alone take the coins and purchase the potter's field? Gavin, you're wasting my time. How did the priests purchase the potter field with the coins and Judas purchase the potter field with the same coin?
One at a time.
Yeah, I'm coming to it. Have you got the patience to wait?
Get on with it, Gavin.
Yeah, real quick. So, of course, go ahead and repeat your question, and then let's allow Gavin. Okay. You have 2 minutes.
Gavin, how did the priest purchase the money with the same coins Judas purchased the... How did the priest purchase the land with the same coins Judas purchased the land? Because in one of them it says Judas purchased it with the money of his iniquity, and the other one it says the priest purchased it with the coins Judas left behind. How did they both purchase the same plot of land with the same coins?
Is that your whole question? Don't have any more to add?
Answer it.
Okay. So, in the Acts account, we've got Luke describing one. He describes the aftermath of Judas's suicide. Two, he explains that his body fell and burst open.
Answer the question, Gavin.
Can you shut your mouth, gay boy? Can you shut your mouth, gay boy, and show some patience? This is not
it's a direct question.
I'm getting to it. It's a bit like a goose that is hung by the neck. When the
running away from the question, Gavin. You're embarrassing yourself.
Falls off the noose around its neck. It's ready to be eaten. So the Acts account is likely referring to the decomposition of Judas's body after hanging. However, the major scholarly consensus is that, one, Judas hanged himself. Two, after his body began to decompose, it fell and burst open when the rope or the branch broke. Number three, both Matthew and Acts agree that Judas died in the field. The location became known as the Field of Blood. Judas's death was a result of his betrayal to Jesus. So there's two different contexts here. Matthew is describing the actual hanging of Judas, and in the Acts account, Luke is describing the aftermath. You understand the difference?
No, it's not, Gavin.
15 minutes is up for that cross-exam now.
Okay,
Gavin, you have a hybrid, I guess it is a cross-exam and it's like a little hybrid thing. So you could take your 15 minutes, I guess, ask him questions or refute whatever you think. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Corsi, Now, steel man for me, what the Bible is not.
That's irrelevant to the topic.
Answer the question, please.
It's irrelevant to the topic.
So I'll put a point.
If you want me to answer it, I'm just going to filibuster the heck out of it too. The Bible is not true.
So you can't answer
the Bible is not true. The Bible is not true.
Tell me what the Bible is then. Steel man, what the Bible is.
A hypothetical story from a bunch of people that lived in the desert age.
No. I want you to steel man what I said about what the Bible is.
Oh, I don't need to steel man. You wasted time. This was about contradictions in the Bible, not what the Bible is or isn't.
It's 0 points to you. You're actually in the negative.
You're literally just wasting your time.
Okay.
You wasted enough of mine.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. This is my
cross-examination. I thought you were going to be the better person at the beginning of this. You pointed out that I was swearing, and now you're literally calling me drama. I thought you were going to be the better person. I guess not.
This is my cross-examination.
So ask me a relevant question.
You can attend to your after we finish. All right.
Ask me a relevant question.
How does it feel to be such a total failure?
So what, in your limited online atheist opinion, why do you think there are two differing genealogies in Matthew and Luke?
I never brought up the genealogies.
I'm asking you
I did not bring the genealogies into this. I don't care about the genealogies.
Okay, so that's another cross. You're -3.
I don't care about the genealogies. One of them could be Mary's, one of them could be Joseph. Okay. The Bible doesn't say.
Yeah, it actually does. It actually does. Don't say things that you don't know anything about.
Technically, the Bible says Joseph has two different deaths, but I'm not bringing that up. That's irrelevant to my presentation.
Where did I mention the word errors in the Bible? Tell me that. Where did I mention the word errors?
You did say there are errors in the Bible.
And
errors that can cause contradictions. Good. Yeah, I agree. There are errors. Errors that can cause contradictions.
So what was the contradiction? Tell me what the word errors. Tell me the context of the word errors. What was I saying?
What's the context of the word errors? Mistakes. Mistakes that can cause contradictions. Yeah, okay, great. I agree. There are mistakes.
You're -4 now. You're -4 now.
You're at -100.
All right. So,
you haven't addressed anything. You haven't even tried.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
You're bringing up points I never brought up.
You're being cross-examined.
Ask me a relevant question to the points that I described.
Yeah, I am. I'm asking you relevant questions.
Please do.
In the Bible. So,
I'm getting real tired of this shit.
So as far as Judas's fate is concerned,
Jesus fucking Christ!
I'm going to have Walter here peel your dick like a banana.
What was the Old Testament prophecies that were fulfilled by Judas hanging himself?
That's irrelevant.
Oh
I don't care what the Old Testament prophecy was.
Another cross.
To do with
so you're 5-0. You're 5-0. You're 5-0.
I don't care what it is. I don't care about the prophecies. I care about what's written.
Shut your mouth. And Zechariah chapter 11, 12 to 13, both prophesy or predict the death of Judas Iscariot and his betrayal, and he does it for 30 pieces of silver. Now these prophecies, surprise, surprise, Corsi, Jeremiah was written in between 630 and 580 BC, and Zechariah's account was written between 520 and 470 BC. That's a lot of years, before it actually happened. And they got it right. Amazing. Amazing. So they were written 500 to 600 years before the event. Alright. So as far as what did you say? You said something about the birth narratives. You had issue with the birth narratives, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So
what do you want to ask me about him?
What's your issue? Be quiet. This is my cross-examination. What's your issue with Matthew and Luke's? Or what do you see as the contradiction between Matthew and Luke's birth narrative? And I don't want a dissertation. I just want a short, clipped answer.
Okay, short. I posted in the side chat because I knew you weren't going to pay attention.
Corsi, you tell me.
Okay,
you have to actually speak and engage the audience. No, listen. The reason why you have to speak and engage the audience is so that the audience can figure out for themselves.
I'll read it. I'll tell you.
Shut your mouth.
Tell you.
The audience judges how.
Hey, cheater!
Also,
all right, cheater. I guess we're going to do this.
The audience can judge your argumentative competency. That's why you should speak.
So, real quick. So instead of meta, try to either refute things or rebut what he said, or ask him questions.
Yeah, well, I've asked him a question, and he says he's put the answer in the side chat. I want him to speak.
Yeah, I can answer that. I can read it if you want.
Up to you.
Okay. So in Matthew chapter 2, I'll just read them all.
Matthew's birth narrative and Luke's
I'll just read them all.
What's the biggest contradiction?
I'll read them all.
I want your biggest contradiction, okay?
Okay, Jesus can't be in two places at once.
Well, let me just say you're correct.
Okay, that's pretty piss poor. All right.
He's either in Nazareth, according to Luke, after he's 2 years old. He's either in Nazareth, according to Luke, or Egypt, according to Matthew. Before he's 2 years old, he can't be in Jerusalem, then Nazareth, according to Luke, and Bethlehem, according to Matthew. How do you appeal to Schrodinger's God?
There is another cross-examination question.
So you're throwing that away. You're ignoring that answer. Good job. Move on.
Are you ready to answer my cross-examination question?
Please,
are you ready?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you made a lot of claims in the first half of your cross-examination. What's your evidence for these claims?
Really?
The Bible.
No.
Because I literally referenced the biblical scripture. I posted all the biblical scripture for it. My evidence is the Bible.
Book and chapter. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Okay, cheater. Okay, like literally, you're a lying, cheating. You cheated on your wife. I mean, you want to call me a gay boy? I can call you a wife cheater.
Shut the fuck up.
If you want to continue with the meta,
personal life from 12 years ago, you cunt.
Stop bringing up my personal life.
Okay, so Gavin, what is your question? What's your question?
Okay, my question for this is
cheating.
What is your evidence for these claims
cheater?
Claims you made in the first half of your terrible cross-examination? What's your evidence?
The evidence for it is in the Bible. It's literally in the Bible. The exact same chapters and verses they brought up. Matthew 28:2-4, Matthew 28:1, Mark 16:1-4, Luke 24:1-3, John 20 verse 1, John 20 verses 1 and 2, Matthew 28:5-7, Mark 16:5-7, Luke 24:4-8, Luke 24:12, John 20:3-10, Mark 16:9-11, John 20:11-18. I can read them.
Rebut that or ask another question.
They're literally the same biblical scriptures that were quoted to me.
So, asshole, let's talk about the cheater.
I thought you were going to be the better man and not swear.
Let's talk about the contradiction. So, what's your first one?
Let's do that finally.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you. So, what's your first one?
I gave them all in my opening statement. Did you not pay attention?
No.
Yeah, but I have trouble processing a lot of information at a time. So stop trying to do an O.J. Simpson and avoid the question. What's your first contradiction? Book, chapter, verse,
which contradiction do you want me to bring up to you?
Book, chapter, verse,
birth narrative, resurrection narrative, or the Judas Iscariot fate?
Oh, for goodness sake. You're wasting my time. I hope I can reclaim some of this back.
No.
Give
You
me
literally wasted
your
most of
biggest
the time. I asked you a
contradiction.
specific question, and you went on a narrative that
Give
took
me
like
your
3
biggest
minutes.
contradiction of the resurrection narratives. Give me your biggest one, your biggest and best. Let's hear it. Show the audience that you have argumentative
The resurrection narrative. You want my best one?
Yeah, best one. Give me the
How many
book, chapter,
angels were
verse.
there? And where? How many angels were there, and where were they?
Well, the Bible says 1 or 2 angels. You know that.
Really? So it's both?
Yeah.
Cool, you're a dumbass.
one
Because
or
literally
two.
it talks about
It
a
says 1 or
singular
2.
angel descending from heaven,
Is
not
that your
two.
biggest contradiction?
So, the next one. How many
Is that your
women went
biggest
up?
contradiction?
How many women went up?
Okay. So how many do you claim went up?
How many? I don't know. It's 1, 2, 3, or 5. How many women went up?
Okay. Give me the book, chapter, verse that you're quoting from.
Okay. Oh my God.
How does it feel to have survived such a crazy bitch?
Give me the book, chapter, verse that you're quoting from.
You had a month. You had an entire month to research this, Gavin.
You are losing the cross-examination by
I am not losing this cross-examination. You had an entire month.
Simple question.
And I answered it. John chapter 20 verses 1 through 18. Mark chapter 16 verses 1 through 8. Matthew chapter 28 verses 1 through 10. Luke chapter 24 verses 1 through 6. That's where it is. I gave this to you a month ago. You should have done some research other than cramming it in the past 1 week.
You're such a liar.
I'm a liar? You want me to prove to the whole chat that I'm not lying?
You're such a liar. You've not forwarded to me any evidence or any biblical
Okay,
quote.
so we have, I'm going to step in real quick. We have 3 minutes left, Gavin, for you. And are both of you okay, since this has been more of a open discussion, really, for both of you. Do you want to, is it okay? All right, so try to make the last 3 minutes just question and then let him answer and try to quick, like hot shoot them out, you know, like quick.
So, Corsi, open your Bible and give me your best contradiction from the resurrection narratives.
I gave it to you, but right now I'm proving that you're a liar.
Okay, so you can't give me the book, chapter, verse, correct?
There's proof that I gave it to him a month ago. So you want that? Okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and quote chapter and verse like this on a dime. I'm giving you the whole thing.
I just asked you for the book, chapter,
with the resurrection story.
How many angels? Contradiction?
How about this?
And you can't.
Let's do something simple.
No, you're a train wreck.
Simple.
You've lost
Did
this round.
Mary recognize Jesus?
I asked you normal, straightforward questions.
One simple question: did Mary recognize Jesus?
Your biggest contradiction. And you rattle off a whole lot of
Did Mary recognize Jesus? There it is. What is the answer? Did he recognize? Did she recognize him or not?
If the audience has got a brain cell, which I doubt, given they're mostly atheists.
Oh my God! You're supposed to ask me questions. Don't beg me for what my stuff is. You should have paid attention.
So
why did you not pay attention? My goodness, Gavin.
So Gavin, you have 2 minutes left. Do you have another question?
Okay, another question. This is another book, chapter, verse question, Corsi. So don't dick me around and try and dodge like O.J. Simpson. Out of Matthew and Luke, where's the book, chapter, verse that talks about Jesus' childhood?
I'm sorry. We don't give a fuck.
What do you mean talks about Jesus' childhood?
I'll say it in English and I'll say it even slower. Out of the
childhood
two Gospels,
in reference to what?
Matthew and Luke, which Gospel talks about Jesus' childhood?
Gavin, what do you mean childhood?
You can't answer.
As in, what age?
You're
what age, Gavin?
You're a child wreck.
What
So
age?
that was my last cross-examination question, I
what
guess.
age, Gavin?
That was my last.
Do you
last
mean when he was born? Childhood from when he was 0 to 2? Do you mean when he was 2 to 12? Do you mean when he was 12 and on? What age, Gavin? I'm asking you for clarification. You can't even figure that out.
No. You're asking you're asking me questions while you're googling madly because you don't know.
Ah, you're stupid, huh? I can work with stupid.
Yeah, so Gavin, you give him some. So you have. I'm gonna pause the timer. It said I'll allow this. Give him clarification, then allow him to answer, and then we'll move on to the open discussion.
Right. So childhood just means anywhere from toddler up to the age 10, 11, 12. That's kind of what is referred to by childhood. So which gospel is it, Corsi?
Okay, if you're talking about that, it's basically all of Matthew chapter 2 and all of Luke chapter 2, because they all talk about Jesus.
No, that's bullshit.
They all talk about Jesus when he was a baby and when he when he was 2.
No, that's bullshit.
So when it comes to Luke,
which gospel talks about
would you stop?
Jesus being left behind?
I'm trying to answer his question.
Gavin, hold on, because I paused the time. Allow him to answer without interrupting real quick, and then we'll move on to the open discussion.
Yeah.
And then you can.
Go on, do your best, Corsi.
Okay, so both Matthew and Luke are in chapter 2 of both books is literally talking about his childhood. So when he's not saying anything about like what age, it's not going to be helpful for me. So I'm just going to quote the whole chapter. So in Luke, it's talking about when Jesus was a young infant, freshly born. So it's talking about the shepherds coming in off of the field. They follow angels in and worship at Jesus'
That's
feet.
when he was a baby.
Would you please, Gavin? You asked me. I'm answering.
Please,
they reference at Jesus' feet. No problem. I don't have a problem with that. I don't care. The problem that I have with this narrative is when he. Gavin, I know you're too scared that you can't let me finish, but I am literally just asked you to let me finish.
Hurry up.
I am. Shut up. So in Luke, after he's born, the shepherds come. They don't actually give him presents, but they talk about him and praise him everywhere in town. And they keep going on and on. But it's basically, that's the chapter in Luke. Later on, Jesus is brought from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, where he is anointed, brought to Siloam, and he is basically represented as as savior for the Jewish nation. And Matthew, it gives a different story about when he was about 2 years old. But unfortunately, in Luke, he ends up retreating to Nazareth in Galilee. In Matthew, it talks about him in Bethlehem the entire time. So he's supposedly in Bethlehem from birth to 2 years old.
I think you answered the question good, and I think it's actually going a little bit off topic of biblical contradictions. And so
this is the point.
Are both parties, since this has dragged on for a little bit longer, do you guys mind a 30-minute open discussion and then your 5-minute closings? Is that fine with you, Gavin?
Yeah. If it'll last that long.
Okay. Gavin hasn't refuted any of my contradictions.
It was Luke's
cheating X. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be in like unfaithful husband,
that kind of shows you how familiar.
Okay, I'm going to ask you boys kindly. In this, I'm going to start the timer after I'm done talking here, and then the battle begins and the open discussion. Just try to keep the topic on strictly the contradictions and allow each other to answer and be precise. I mean, I believe both of you want the audience to hear your side. And so let's go ahead and start.
Give me a hug.
All right, Gavin, I'm going to try this. So you haven't actually been able to refute almost any of the things that are brought up. You've filibustered your way through this whole thing. And it's been like, I can't wait for this to go on my channel. It's going to be hilarious. So I need you to tell me, and I'm going to ask you a simple question. I need you to tell me how Judas took the money and paid for the field, and the priests were able to take the exact same money and pay for the field.
Yeah, I've already told you that, but I'll repeat it. Judas, if you recall, Judas threw the money at the chief priests because he was full of remorse, right? And then the chief priests, they bought the field. And just a minute. So Judas didn't actually buy the field.
That's correct when it comes to Matthew, yes. What about Acts?
What about Acts? Acts is talking about the aftermath of Judas's.
What does Acts chapter 1 verse 18 say?
Oh, you want me to read from the Bible? Okay, I'll do that because I have a Bible.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
What does Acts chapter 1 verse 18 say?
Yeah, Acts chapter 1 verse 18. Okay.
Do not be afraid.
Acts chapter 1 verse 18 says the following. Now it's in brackets, okay? With the payment he received for his wickedness, Judas bought a field. There he fell headlong. His body burst open and all his intestines spilled out. And that's it.
Can you repeat the specific part where Judas bought the field?
No, it's fine. It's
so
fine.
It says Judas bought the field. But you already said that in the other one, the priest bought the field.
That's what Luke says.
So exactly. Yeah. That is what Luke's. That's literally what Acts says.
And you find that a contradiction.
Matthew, it says something different. So who bought the field, Gavin? How did the priest and Judas buy the field?
Do you find that a contradiction?
Yes! Oh!
Yeah, it's only that's two different people buying the same field, Gavin.
Right? It says the priest bought the field?
Yeah, correct? You read it.
Right. And you think it's a big contradiction?
Yes.
Two people can't buy the same field with the same money, no.
Hey. How could...
all right, cheating husband.
Can you be quiet? Ask what?
Oh, sure, cheating husband. I actually think...
After the debate, please. How can Judas buy the field when he threw the money at the priest? He couldn't, could he?
Exactly.
Oh my God! It's a breakthrough.
Judas paid for the field if he threw the money at the priest. That's the point.
Okay. So, hang on.
Go on, Google.
Sorry?
How did Judas buy the field if he threw the money at the priests?
He didn't.
It literally says it. You read it.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
You read it.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Absolutely nothing, but you read that the priest purchased the field like literally 2 minutes ago.
2 minutes, James. Okay. I've got this written down somewhere. You can find it when you want to. But it was the priest that paid the money for the field, and they bought it, and likely, the Bible doesn't say, it's likely that they would have put it in Judas's name by proxy. It's the most likely account.
That's not what this is talking about. I don't care if it's proxied.
It doesn't. I don't care what you're saying.
It literally says
I don't care what you're saying.
The coins. This is talking about the physical currency. The physical currency.
Yeah. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Matthew. The priest took the coins and purchased the potter's field because they could not put the physical coins in the church's coffer.
Yes.
But in Acts, Judas Judas acquired the field with the reward of his wickedness. He purchased the field with the exact same physical coin.
So that's what Luke wrote. That's what Luke wrote, right? Is that the one contradiction that proves the Bible to be false and destroys Christianity.
I don't care if the Bible's true or false. That's not what we're talking about.
Fucking idiot.
Don't derail.
Anyway,
don't derail. You fucking idiot. And if you're going to fucking swear, fucking swear. All right, fuckface dipshit. Let's find out if you can fucking do this shit. I was trying to be the better person. I wasn't swearing.
I think so far it's been proven.
I think we started this by you saying you were the better person.
Argumentative competence, right? That's for a start. Because you can't even give me book, chapter, verse.
I gave you book, chapter, verse. I literally did.
Only one. Only one. After many
posted all of this chapter, verse in the side chat. I went over in my opening video. Book, chapter, verse. Entire opening video.
Stop sniveling like
cheating, bitch.
All right, real quick, guys. For the audience, Corsi, can you explain the actual contradiction that you're talking about with the coin?
Yes.
And then you know the conversation.
So it is when it's talking in Acts, basically in Acts and Matthew. In the book of Acts, Judas takes the physical coins to pay for the potter's field. In the book of Matthew, chapter 27,
where does it say that?
The priest. In the
where
book
does it say that?
Jesus Christ! I said verse 18. You read it.
Yeah, so you read it. You read it. Come on. Show the audience you know what you're talking about.
Okay, I've had one too many emotions for today.
I'm gonna be mad.
I think you're well past that.
You're in my house, bitch.
I'm gonna scroll down here because I actually have all of it set aside. Why
don't you have a Bible open?
So, Matthew chapter 27, right?
Oh my God! I thought you going to Acts 1.
And the chief priest, Matthew 27, verse 6. And the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood." Matthew chapter 27, verse 7. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Acts chapter 1, verse 18. Now, this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. So, in Matthew, in the two verses I just read verbatim, the chief priest purchased the field.
Listen to the acid dripping out of your mouth.
Chapter 1, verse 18, which I read verbatim.
To the acid dripping out your mouth.
He actually purchased the field himself. So how did both the priest and cheating, lying,
chapter 1, verse 18 to 19, is that in brackets? Is it bracketed?
It doesn't matter if it's bracketed or not. It's literally talking about
it does. It matters a lot.
Scripture.
It matters a lot. But let's move on. Let's move on, because you proved yourself to be incompetent.
No, you're incompetent. You couldn't even remember what I wrote when I said to you in the opening statement. You literally researched the genealogy when I told you it was a birth narrative. You couldn't even figure that out for this debate.
Wow, you're gonna have to calm down, man.
I'm upset because you're too stupid to have a conversation with.
No, you're
and the entire time you're trying to rile me up by calling me gay boy.
You're upset
and you had started this out by saying you didn't want to be a bad person. You want to be the better person because there was a couple of cuss words in my opening statement.
That's your problem. That's your problem. You're losing.
That is your problem. You have a problem. I thought you'd actually be able to be somewhat professional with this. Evidently, you're not.
Oh, I have been. All
right, so Gavin, I do gotta say, you did say you're gonna take the high road, and you have been cussing. So just being aware, so he's not wrong about that.
Yeah, okay.
Can you please for the audience, since I allowed
be antagonized.
Can you moderate? Eon? Please.
Yeah. So real quick. So. I gave Corsi time
to... No, not real quick. Not real quick. You're moderating. And we're having an open discussion.
Right. I gave Corsi time earlier, so I'm going to give you time now. Do you want to describe a little bit more for the audience what you mean by the brackets and how that will... by
the what? What are you talking about?
The brackets in that passage, right? You asked him...
yeah.
Right. So you want to explain that a little bit further?
Okay. In Acts 1 verses 18 to 19, the two verses are bracketed, right? They're bracketed at the start of verse 18 and they're bracketed at the end of verse 19. So what this represents is, well, Luke's not like entirely sure that this is correct. He's not entirely sure, but he's including it anyway. You understand me, Corsi?
You want me to answer, or is that I
just
wouldn't
asked you,
say
do
what
you
you're about to
understand
say.
me? Do you understand me?
I do, but it's not helping you.
Do you understand me?
Yes,
Yes or
I
no?
understand you, but
Okay,
it is
good,
not going to help you.
Good. So silence for you, please. Silence for you. Yeah, you also made a lot of other claims in your cross-examination. That was the worst cross-examination I've ever heard. In a cross-examination, you're supposed to ask questions, and the other side is supposed to answer the questions, not duck and weave like you did. So you made a big deal about the number of angels. So why do you see that as a contradiction? Number of angels.
It's not just the number of angels. It's not just the number. It's not just the number of angels that's a contradiction. It's the number of angels
for you,
where I am answering your. Ion,
can I say it slowly and in English so you don't get it wrong?
Yes, Gavin, please allow Corsi to finish at least the sentence.
What's the problem you have with the number of angels at the tomb, and why do you see that as a contradiction?
I'm trying to tell you, if you'd be quiet so I can, and you listen instead of talking.
Would you answer the question?
I'm trying, Gavin. So anyway, it's not just the number of angels. It's the number of angels, where they are, what they're doing, and how they're doing it.
My question is, what's your problem with the number of angels?
I'm trying to tell you.
One or two. There was one or two angels there. What's your problem with that?
Why are you so lame?
Stop!
No, don't tell me to stop. Answer the question.
Can you please mute him so I can get this moving?
This is an absolute dumpster fire, Gavin. You cannot keep asking him a question and then interrupting him during the answer.
Shut the fuck up! You certified dom. You sexually perverted.
So this is an open discussion, and I'm allowing them to duke it out the way they feel like it. Yeah, and if it gets too bad, I cut it.
I just want to answer his question because at least we'll get somewhere with this. So can you please mute him or get him to stop?
Can you answer my question?
He is asking you to moderate this, Eon. He's not. So it's not how they want to do it. It's how Gavin wants to do it.
Shut the fuck up.
I know, it's basically...
Shut the fuck up. We don't want your sexually perverted anywhere near this debate.
After this, I swear to God, I'm never going to waste time with Gavin again. I'm done. I'm so done. This is a complete embarrassment.
Yeah, so go ahead and Corsi, go ahead and Gavin, please allow him to answer how it's a contradiction for the angels.
Okay, so the angels.
You want me to repeat it, Corsi?
It's not just, no, I don't need you to repeat it. I need you to be quiet.
Answer the question. Answer the question.
It's not just
Don't
about
tell
the
me
number.
It's not just.
So it's not just about the number of angels.
Why you see
There's more to the angels than just the number of angels, and that's where my problem is.
Okay, I'm going to move on to another question.
Jesus Christ! I haven't even answered.
AJ Simpson. We should call you AJ Simpson.
Can you please mute him?
And your
so I can answer this.
Dom, what should we call him?
I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to just answer the question for the audience.
Gavin, yeah, allow him to answer that real quick so the audience can hear at least. I've heard it in the background, but I don't think the audience did. So go ahead, Corsi.
Okay, so it's not just about the number of angels. It's the number of angels and what they're specifically doing. So it's one angel that descends from heaven, moves the stone aside in front of the two Marys, and they're astounded by the earthquake. Then in a different book, they don't see an angel. There is no angel. They just find the tomb open with nothing there. Then they walk in and see a man dressed in white that is presumably an angel sitting down inside. In a next book, they walk into the tomb. They see nothing, no angels at all. Then two angels appear out of thin air next to them. And in the last one, where it's Luke, Mary goes up alone at night, sees no angels. She just sees the tomb open. Goes back, tells the two disciples, and they go back up. The disciples see no angels. Then Mary goes into the tomb and sees two angels now, alone. And she turns around, and she's the only person who sees Jesus at that point and doesn't recognize him. So it's either one angel descending from heaven, one angel inside the tomb sitting down, two angels inside the tomb sitting down on either side of the stone, or it's two angels that appear out of thin air in the group of women. This is the problem that I have with the angels. I tried to give this in my opening statement, but you didn't listen.
What's your evidence for these claims, please, sir?
The Bible.
Okay, give us the book, chapter, and verse that you're talking about, please.
Sure.
Be a sport and grab Daddy another beer, would you?
So, Matthew 28, verse...
Now, say them slowly, okay?
Starting with verse 2. Matthew 28, starting with verse 2. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. Mark chapter 16, verse... I think it's 5? 5. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said, for you are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. I literally said it's Mark 16:5. Pay attention, Gavin. I'm giving you chapter just like you wanted. Luke chapter 24, verse... let's see.
Chapter in Mark. What's the chapter in Mark? Mark 16.
I told you, chapter 16, starting at verse 5. Let's see. They found the stone rolled away, but when they did through the...
And what you want for Luke?
About this. Okay, in Luke chapter 24, starting at verse 3. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. Verse 4. While they were wondering about this, suddenly... two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" That's Luke chapter 24. In John chapter 20...
Is that 24?
It is verse 3. I told you what it is, Gavin. Please listen. I told you what it is, Gavin. Please listen. In
I'm trying to
chapter 20... It's a later verse.
So is it
there
Luke
it is.
24:3?
Stop it.
You can't tell me.
Would you please?
So what is the chapter in John? What is it?
24 starting with verse 3. 24 starting with verse 3. 24 starting with verse 3.
You told me the reference in Luke was 24:3.
Gavin, instead of, I think you know the passages, right?
You haven't been listening at all.
Can you, Gavin, because I think before your rebuttal for this is that there's one or two angels, right? Do you want to expound on that?
Yeah, exactly. So you gave me the reference in Luke as 24:3, Corsi, right? So what's the reference for John?
I was stupid. If you would shut up, I'd actually get there. So it's John chapter 20... starting with 11. I think it's starting with 11.
That's 11.
Yeah, 11.
Okay.
So now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. Verse 12. And saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. So in one they saw one angel descending from heaven. In Mark, they saw one angel sitting inside on the right. In Luke, they saw two angels appeared out of thin air next to them, just like I said. And in John, two angels were inside the tomb where the other disciples didn't see one. They didn't see an angel. And Mary saw the two angels sitting on either end of the stone, exactly like I said. Explain all the different accounts of all of that.
What's your beef? What's your beef with there being one angel or two angels? What's your beef with that?
It's not just one or two, it's where they are, Gavin. It's where they all are. They're in completely different places. You can't be just sitting there when they walk in and then appear out of thin air as they're already standing there, Gavin.
What is your beef with there being one or two angels?
I told you that. They're in different places. There is one. Okay, they're either outside, you can't see an angel, inside and see one.
All right, OJ.
Stand outside, see an angel, and never go inside. The whole story is completely different, Gavin. And you haven't addressed why. All you've asked me is for chapter and verse, and now you're interrupting me again after asking me yet another question.
So Gavin, he's saying he answered your question that there's angels inside in one account, then there's an angel outside in another account. You want to explain that?
Yeah, my question is, what is his beef about there being one angel or two angels? He has not answered.
Are we starting this again?
You haven't answered.
I told you in detail. I gave you chapter and verse the answer, Gavin.
You can't answer. So
I literally gave you chapter and verse the answer.
Let's move along, please.
You can't. Oh my God, you're so bad at this. Can we just go to closing argument, closing statements? Because this is so embarrassing. It's frustrating at this point.
Yeah, Gavin, would you mind? You guys have 8 minutes left. Do you mind just going to closings?
Can we move along?
No, are you fine with going directly to closings, or do you want to continue in the 8 minutes?
Oh, I'll carry on with the 8 minutes. This is fun.
Okay, but try to in this time, because the last 7 minutes now, I'm going to moderate a little bit more heavily so we can actually get some.
That's fine.
Get some dialogue.
So Gavin has not actually reconciled any of that. You just said, "Oh, what's the problem?" There is, but he doesn't even understand the problem.
Please, I'm asking you a question.
Well, I haven't even asked you a question yet. You've asked me several. Can I ask you a question?
I'm asking you a question because all you're doing is sniveling. Please tell me, with the resurrection narratives, what was the one thing that they all agreed on? All the gospel
doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. That's not part of the contradictions I'm bringing up.
Wow, it's irrelevant.
There's nothing to do with the contradictions I'm bringing up. It's completely irrelevant. I don't believe this.
One thing. Here's the one thing.
And everything you say just pisses me off.
Yeah, the one thing. Jesus' body wasn't there.
Jesus rose from the dead.
They all got finally one thing right. Everything else wrong.
And walked
so you can't actually, oh my God, you are so bad at this.
Of doing. Now, if you don't know that...
All right, you cheating bitch. If you want to sit there cheating bitch, I'm not going to censor myself anymore. I'm not going to... The kid gloves are...
Would you want Gavin to actually try to answer this apparent contradiction of the angels outside or inside of the camp in two different accounts? I don't think he gave an answer for that yet.
Gavin, so I'm going to ask you, how is one angel descending from heaven the same as two angels appearing out of thin air inside the tomb?
You do remember me talking about how the Bible is not supposed to be read uber literally, like
yes, you basically said there are contradictions in the Bible. I agree, but you're trying to tell me there are no contradictions in the Bible. Now answer the question.
So I'm answering the question. You shut your mouth. So
okay, cheating wife cheater.
We've got a apparent contradiction here between there being one angel at the tomb or two angels at the tomb. Correct?
No. Specifically, I gave you specifics. One angel descending from heaven,
you're trying to be precise.
Or two angels appearing inside the tomb where there weren't any before. How are both of those true?
There was no angels.
Gavin, are you being intentionally an asshole?
Yes.
Because that's the only thing I can think of. Are you intentionally being an asshole? Are you intentionally being naive?
When it comes to assholes, I think you've got that territory well covered.
Trust me, you've called me gay boy enough. I know what an asshole is.
Have you got a question? Have you got a question?
Yes, I asked the question. Now answer it.
I'll ask it again.
Okay. How do you reconcile one angel descending from heaven and appearing in front of Mary and Mary to equate to two angels appearing inside the tomb out of thin air when there weren't any there before. Because they were scared when the two angels appeared out of thin air, but shouldn't have been scared if they had already seen angels.
You've probably forgotten this, but I did talk about when a surprising event happens, like outside a restaurant. This is an event that can happen to people, and they can get things easily mixed up, very easily mixed up, what they're trying to recall. Whether there was one or two angels on the scene at the tomb means nothing, okay? It doesn't alter the narrative at all. The main narrative of the resurrection...
I don't care what the main narrative is! Answer the question, don't deflect it!
Shut your mouth, shut your mouth.
Your question!
The main theme, the number one thing that all the gospel writers agreed upon was that Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days.
I don't care. I don't care.
Punched a hole and death
not up
and
for
walked
debate
through
right
it.
now,
And that is common knowledge. You don't know that. You don't know that.
Bring up irrelevant garbage to waste
You've lost
time.
this debate by miles.
You haven't even debated. You haven't brought up anything. You haven't countered any of my points. You've literally agreed with a few of my points that they are contradictions. You stated at the very beginning, and I'll try to quote you, you admitted to errors, you brought up a bunch of irrelevant trash, you talked about things being different from one narrative to the other, which is talking about more errors. You didn't care. I don't care about any of it. I mean, Gavin, you stumbled over the birth narrative scrambling to find a link because you researched the genealogy and never researched Judas. I mean, you literally at several points said they have different perspectives of the same event and they're going to be different. You literally agreed that there are contradictions. This is disgusting. I am actually offended at how badly you are doing in this round. I don't know why anybody in this audience would ever even bother to waste half a second discussing anything with you again after this pitiful, disgusting display of a so-called Christian. You have literally said at the beginning of this conversation that you are going to take the high ground, and yet the entire time you are having this conversation, you're sitting there calling me gay boy and swearing up and down like a worse sailor.
Yeah, you're
been trying to behave and not swear because I respect Ion
for most of the debate.
Can we move to closings for that man because he is a good guy. Notice he hasn't tried to butt in. I guarantee he has wanted to butt in.
Yeah, we can
we move to closings so we can.
Yeah, we only got a minute left of that, anyways. Yeah. So go ahead. So
So Corsi, you're up for closings.
I don't care about you, Gavin. I'm done with you after tonight.
That's your closing statement. Wow.
Oh, my closing statement. I can give my closing statement. I can be done.
All right, so Corsi, whenever you're ready for your statement.
Oh, sure. Okay, my closing statement. As I expected, Gavin was unable to reconcile just these 3 points. He didn't even try. I mean, he's had weeks to come up with a refutation for them. 4 weeks ago, I gave him the exact contradictions I wanted to go over. I proved it by posting it in the side chat, and I showed it in my opening statement. He has had plenty of time to research and formulate a reason for these, and to read they're to read so differently, and he can't. Gavin therefore must conclude and has admitted that he cannot reconcile the contradictions I've presented. As I showed at the start of this debate, there are almost 450 contradictions written into the Bible. With this much backtracking and errors in the Bible, how can anyone trust it to be a source of truth at all, when even the Bible itself can't be truthful and get its mythology straight? It's supposed to be the perfect word of a perfect being presented to us perfectly, so his God would be revealed to us. If that is the case, why are there hundreds of slightly different denominations of Christianity? And why would there be half a dozen channels in just this server alone? All debating with each other, all disagreeing with each other on what the Bible really is supposed to mean. From baptism to burial rites, even the Christians don't really know what the messages in the Bible are trying to tell us. And it's all on display for anyone to see on just how many times the Bible contradicts itself. And the behavior of Christians, because some Christians, sorry, Ion, the behavior of some Christians to act in the way Gavin here does, it makes people wonder why anyone would believe in this kind of thing if this is going to be the end result. There are contradictions in the Bible. Gavin has admitted it, and I have proven it tonight. I can see the rest of my time.
Okay, Gavin. You can start your closing when you're ready. You there, Gavin? Gavin, are you there?
I guess not.
We'll give him a minute. Maybe he's using the bathroom or something.
Fair enough.
So how about it? What a feisty debate.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm sorry. It gets really frustrating when you ask questions and it's just not answered. So we just... Whew.
Did he get knocked offline? Is he...